My name is Margaret Hayes, and for 32 years, I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew every line on his face, every habit, every secret thought behind his eyes. I thought our marriage was solid, built on a foundation of trust, routine, and the comfortable intimacy that comes from 3 decades of shared life. I was 57 years old, a mother of 2 grown children, a grandmother of 3 beautiful grandchildren, and the wife of Richard Hayes, a successful accountant who'd built his practice from nothing. We lived in a comfortable suburban home with a garden I'd tended for 20 years, in a neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, where we attended the same church every Sunday, where our lives were predictable and safe. Predictable. Safe. Those words used to comfort me. Now they haunt me. Because beneath that perfect surface, beneath the routine of morning coffee and evening dinners, beneath the polite kisses and habitual "I love you" declarations, my husband was living an entirely different life, a secret life that would shatter everything I believed about him, about us, about the past 3 decades we'd spent together. And the worst part? The truly insane part that still keeps me awake at night? I almost didn't find out. I was this close to living the rest of my life in blissful ignorance, never knowing that the man sleeping beside me every night was someone I didn't know at all. It started 6 months ago, though I didn't recognize the signs at the time. Richard began working late more frequently. Nothing dramatic, just an extra hour here, 2 hours there. Tax season, he'd say with an apologetic smile. Big client needs the books done by month end. I'd nod, understanding, supportive. I'd been the understanding wife for 32 years. It was my role, one I'd perfected. I'd reheat his dinner, keep it warm in the oven, and we'd eat together when he got home, talking about our day in the comfortable shorthand of long-married couples. But then the late nights became later. The apologies became less frequent. The explanations became vaguer. Meeting ran long. Got caught up with paperwork. Traffic was terrible. And Richard started carrying his phone with him everywhere. To the bathroom, to the garage when he took out the trash, even to the bedroom at night, keeping it on his nightstand where I'd never seen it before. He'd always left it charging in the kitchen overnight. For 32 years, his phone charged in the kitchen. Now it was glued to his hand. I told myself I was being paranoid. Richard wasn't the type to have an affair. He was steady, reliable, boring even. His idea of excitement was trying a new restaurant or watching a documentary about World War II. He wore the same style of shirts he'd worn for 20 years. He ordered the same coffee every morning. He was a creature of habit, my Richard. Creatures of habit don't have affairs. Or so I thought. The real changes were subtle. He started losing weight. Not dramatically, but enough that his clothes fit better, enough that I noticed. "Are you dieting?" I asked one morning as he buttoned a shirt that used to be snug but now hung loosely. "Just trying to be healthier," he said, not meeting my eyes. "We're not getting any younger." He started caring about his appearance more. New cologne, more expensive than his usual drugstore brand. A haircut at a trendy salon instead of the cheap barber he'd gone to for years. New underwear, which he bought himself instead of waiting for me to replace them as I'd always done. "Treating yourself?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light when I found the department store bag in his car. "Just felt like updating things," he said with a shrug. These things, individually, meant nothing. A man trying to take better care of himself. A man working hard during busy season. A man in his late 50s trying to hold on to his youth a little longer. But together, they formed a pattern. A pattern I didn't want to see, because seeing it meant acknowledging that something was wrong. And acknowledging something was wrong meant I'd have to do something about it. So I did what I'd always done. I ignored the uncomfortable feelings. I pushed down the doubts. I told myself that 32 years of marriage meant I could trust my husband, that I was being silly, insecure, paranoid, that women my age always worried about affairs because society told us we weren't desirable anymore, that our husbands would inevitably stray to younger women. But Richard wasn't like that. Richard loved me. We had history. We had children. We had a life. He wouldn't throw that away, would he? The napkin changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in late October. Richard had texted that he'd be home late again, another client meeting. I'd sighed, reheated the leftover chicken casserole, and eaten alone in front of the television. Afterward, I went to throw away my plate and noticed Richard's car keys on the counter. He'd taken my car that morning because his was in the shop getting new tires, which meant his car was in the garage. I don't know what possessed me to go check it. Intuition, maybe. Or maybe I'd been looking for a reason to doubt him. Some concrete evidence that would force me to confront what I'd been avoiding. His car was unlocked. I opened the driver's side door, and the overhead light clicked on, illuminating the interior. Clean, as always. Richard was meticulous about his car. But on the passenger seat, there was trash, a coffee cup, a crumpled receipt, and a white paper napkin. I almost didn't pick it up. What was I doing going through my husband's trash like some paranoid detective in a bad movie? But something made me reach for that napkin. And when I unfolded it, my world stopped. Written in blue ink, in handwriting that wasn't Richard's, were just 6 words and a time. Same place. Thursday, 8 p.m. A. That was it. No address, no context, just those words. But they were enough. Same place meant they'd met before. Thursday meant it was planned. 8 p.m. meant it was after work. And A meant there was someone. Someone with a name that started with A. Someone my husband was meeting. Someone my husband was hiding. My hands shook as I held that napkin. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. This was it. This was proof. My husband was having an affair. Part of me wanted to storm into the house, confront him when he got home, throw the napkin in his face and demand the truth. But another part of me, the part that had been married for 32 years, the part that had raised 2 children and built a life and invested everything in this man, that part needed to know more, needed to see it with my own eyes, needed to be absolutely certain before I destroyed everything. So I took a photo of the napkin with my phone, carefully refolded it, placed it exactly where I'd found it, and closed the car door, my mind already making plans I never thought I'd make. Thursday, 8 p.m. Same place. I had 2 days to prepare, 2 days to decide if I really wanted to know the truth. Because once I knew, I couldn't unknow it. Once I saw whatever I was going to see, there would be no going back to our comfortable, predictable life. But I had to know. Even if it destroyed me, I had to know. Part 2. The Discovery. Thursday came too quickly and too slowly at the same time. The 2 days between finding the napkin and the scheduled meeting were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of normal life. I made breakfast. I did laundry. I smiled at the neighbors. I texted our daughter about her kids' upcoming school play. But inside, I was dying. Every time I looked at Richard, I saw a stranger. Every casual conversation felt like a lie. Every "I love you" as he left for work felt like a betrayal. And the worst part was pretending. Pretending I didn't know. Pretending everything was fine. Pretending my heart wasn't breaking with every passing hour. Richard seemed normal, cheerful even. He came home Wednesday night on time, helped me with dinner, watched TV beside me on the couch with his hand on my knee like he'd done 1,000 times before. Was he thinking about his meeting tomorrow? Was he planning what to wear, what to say, how to sneak away from his wife to be with someone else? Or had lying become so natural to him that he didn't even think about it anymore? Thursday morning, Richard kissed me goodbye like always. "I'll be home around 9, he said. "Late meeting with a potential client." "Okay," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Drive safe." I watched him leave, watched his car pull out of the driveway, and then I went upstairs to my closet and pulled out clothes I hadn't worn in years. Dark jeans, a black sweater, a dark coat. The outfit of someone who planned to hide in shadows and spy on her husband. The outfit of someone whose life had become a cliché. I didn't know where same place was. That was my first problem. The napkin gave me a time but no location. So I did what any desperate woman in 2024 would do. I tracked his phone. Richard and I had always shared our locations with each other. It was a safety thing we'd told ourselves when we set it up years ago. If something happened, we'd be able to find each other. I never thought I'd use it for this. By 7:30 p.m., I was in my car, parked down the street from Richard's office building. My phone showed his location still at work. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. At 7:45 p.m., his dot started moving. I waited until he turned the corner, then started following, keeping several car lengths back. My heart was pounding. My palms were sweating. I felt like I was in a movie. except this was my real life, my real marriage, my real husband I was following. He didn't go far, just 20 minutes outside of town, to an area I didn't recognize. Older commercial buildings, mostly empty at this hour, a few restaurants that looked closed, a parking lot behind an abandoned warehouse. Richard pulled in, parked in a far corner, away from the streetlights, and waited. I parked on the street, far enough away that he wouldn't see me but close enough that I could see his car. The waiting was agony. What was I going to see? Would she be young, some secretary from his office? Would she be someone I knew, a friend who'd betrayed me? Would she be beautiful, confirming all my fears that I'd become too old, too boring, too comfortable? 8 o'clock came, then 8:05, then 8:10. I was starting to think maybe the meeting had been canceled when another car pulled into the lot. A silver sedan, newer model, expensive. It parked next to Richard's car, and someone got out. From my distance, I couldn't see details. Just a figure in dark clothing walking around to Richard's passenger side, getting in, sitting next to my husband. My stomach turned, my throat closed. This was it. This was the moment of truth I'd been both dreading and needing. I grabbed my phone, zoomed in my camera, and took photos even though my hands were shaking so badly the images would probably be blurry. I needed evidence, needed proof, needed something concrete because my mind was already trying to make excuses, trying to tell me this was innocent, trying to protect me from the truth. But there was no protection from what I was seeing, even from a distance. Even in the dim light of the parking lot, I could see them, talking, sitting close. And then Richard reached over, touched the person's hand. Not a business handshake, not a friendly pat. A intimate touch, the kind of touch you give someone you care about, someone you love. I wanted to look away, wanted to drive home and pretend this wasn't happening, wanted to go back to yesterday, to last week, to 6 months ago before everything changed. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. They sat in that car for 43 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on my dashboard, counting every minute, every second of this betrayal. Watched them talk, watched them sit close, watched my husband be intimate with someone who wasn't me. When the other person finally got out of the car, got back in their own vehicle and drove away, I still couldn't move. Richard sat alone in his car for another 10 minutes, just sitting, staring out the windshield. What was he thinking? Was he happy? Sad? Guilty? Did he think about me at all? Did he wonder what I was doing while he was here, betraying everything we'd built? Finally, he started his car, drove out of the parking lot, headed back toward town, back toward home, back toward me. I waited 5 minutes, then followed, my brain numb, my body moving on autopilot. By the time I pulled into our driveway, Richard was already inside. I could see him through the window, standing in the kitchen, looking normal, looking like my husband, looking like the man I'd spent 32 years of my life loving. I sat in my car in the darkness, and I cried. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears running down my face, because this was real. This was happening. My husband was having an affair, and I had no idea what to do about it. Part 3. The confrontation. I didn't go inside immediately. I sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes, trying to compose myself, trying to figure out what to say, how to say it, whether to confront him now or wait. Part of me wanted to burst in and scream, to throw things, to demand answers, to hurt him the way he'd hurt me. But another part of me, the practical part that had managed a household and raised children and navigated life's complications for decades, knew that confronting him while I was this emotional would be a mistake. I needed to be calm, rational, in control. So I wiped my eyes, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, took several deep breaths, and walked into my house like I was walking into a battlefield. Richard was in the living room watching television. He looked up and smiled when I came in. That smile, that casual, comfortable smile he'd given me thousands of times, it made me want to scream. "Hey, honey," he said. "Where were you?" "Just drove around," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Needed to clear my head. "Everything okay?" "Actually, no." I walked into the living room, stood in front of the television, blocking his view. "We need to talk." Something in my tone made him sit up straighter. "What's wrong?" You tell me, Richard. For just a second, I saw it. A flash of panic in his eyes. Quickly covered, but there. He knew. Somehow he knew that I knew. Margaret, I found the napkin, I said, pulling out my phone and showing him the photo I'd taken. In your car. Tuesday night. He went pale. Actually pale. The color draining from his face. That's just... Don't, I said, my voice hard. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. I followed you tonight. I saw you. In that parking lot. With whoever that was. Richard's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. He looked like a fish drowning in air. How long? I asked. How long has this been going on? Margaret, please. How long, Richard? 6 months, he whispered. About 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of him coming home to me while living another life. Half a year of betrayal. Who is she? I asked, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay calm. Is she from your office? Is she someone I know? How old is she? Richard looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pain and fear and something else. Something I couldn't identify. It's not, Margaret, it's complicated. It's actually very simple, I said. You're having an affair. You've been lying to me for 6 months. You've been sneaking around, meeting someone, betraying our marriage. What's complicated about that? The person I've been seeing. Richard stopped, took a breath, started again. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I was shouting now, all my composure gone. Tell me what I'm supposed to think. Tell me why my husband of 32 years has been meeting someone in secret. Tell me why you've been lying to me. Because I didn't know how to tell you the truth, Richard shouted back, standing up. Because I was afraid. Because I didn't understand it myself. Understand what? Richard looked at me for a long moment, and then he said the words that would change everything. It's not a woman, Margaret. The person I've been seeing, it's a man. Time stopped. The room spun. I actually reached out and grabbed the back of a chair because my legs almost gave out. What? It's a man, Richard repeated, his voice quieter now. His name is Alex, and I think I'm in love with him. Of all the things I'd prepared myself for, all the scenarios I'd imagined, this wasn't one of them. A younger woman, a co-worker, a crisis moment. Those I could have understood. Those fit into the narrative of middle-aged men having affairs. But this didn't fit anywhere in my understanding of my husband, my marriage, my life. You're gay? The words felt strange in my mouth. I don't know, Richard said, and I could see he was crying now too. I don't know what I am. I just know that 6 months ago I met Alex at a business conference, and something happened. Something I didn't expect. Something I didn't plan. And now I don't know who I am anymore. I sank into the chair. My brain couldn't process this. Couldn't make sense of it. 32 years, I said. We've been married for 32 years. We have children, grandchildren. How could you not know? How could you hide this? I wasn't hiding it, Richard said. I didn't know. I swear to you, Margaret, I loved you. I still love you. I thought I knew who I was. I thought my life was settled. And then I met Alex, and everything I thought I understood about myself just fell apart. Part 4. The Aftermath. We talked until 3 a.m. Or rather, Richard talked and I listened, my entire worldview crumbling with every word. He told me about Alex, 42 years old, divorced, also struggling with his identity. He told me about their first meeting, innocent at first, just conversation at a conference hotel bar. He told me how it developed slowly, coffee meetings that turned into longer conversations, emails that became more personal, the gradual realization that what he was feeling wasn't just friendship. He told me about the confusion, the guilt, the fear, the nights he'd lie awake next to me, wondering who he really was, the mornings he'd look at himself in the mirror and not recognize the man looking back. I never meant to hurt you, Richard said, over and over. You have to believe that. I never wanted this. But you did it anyway, I said. You made choices. You met him. You continued to see him. You lied to me every single day for 6 months. I know. Do you love him? The question hung in the air. Richard didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was barely a whisper. Yes. That one word hurt more than anything else. More than me? It's different, Richard said. What I feel for you is 32 years of history and partnership and family. What I feel for him is, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a part of myself I didn't know existed suddenly came alive. Like I've been half asleep my whole life, and suddenly I'm awake. So what now? I asked. Do you want a divorce? Do you want to leave me for him? What happens to us? I don't know, Richard said. I honestly don't know. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. But I also can't unfeel what I'm feeling. I can't go back to not knowing this part of myself exists. We didn't solve anything that night. How could we? There was no simple solution to this situation. No easy answers. By the time we finally stopped talking, exhausted and cried out, the sun was rising. Richard slept in the guest room. I lay in our bed alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gotten here, wondering who the man I'd married really was, wondering who I was now, if not the wife of Richard Hayes. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. We told no one at first. Richard moved into the guest room permanently. We maintained appearances for our children, for the neighbors, for the world. But inside our house, we were strangers navigating an impossible situation. I went through stages. Anger came first. Rage at the betrayal, at the lies, at the years I'd given to a man who apparently didn't know himself. I threw things. I screamed. I said horrible things I regret now. Then came sadness, deep, overwhelming grief for the loss of my marriage, my identity, my future as I'd imagined it. I cried more in those weeks than I'd cried in my entire life. Then came the questions. Endless questions. Had Richard ever really loved me? Had our entire marriage been a lie? Had he known all along and hidden it? Was I not woman enough to keep him? Was this my fault somehow? Richard answered what he could, but many questions had no answers. He insisted he had loved me, still loved me, that our marriage hadn't been a lie, it had been real for him at the time, that he truly hadn't known this part of himself existed, that it wasn't about me not being enough. But even his answers didn't help, because the fundamental truth remained. My husband had fallen in love with someone else, and that someone was a man. We started therapy, both together and separately. My therapist helped me understand that Richard's sexuality wasn't a reflection on me, that sexual orientation wasn't a choice, that people could live their entire lives not understanding this fundamental part of themselves, especially men of Richard's generation, who grew up in a time when being gay wasn't accepted. But understanding it intellectually didn't make it hurt less emotionally. Richard's therapist helped him understand himself better, helped him accept that yes, he was likely bisexual or gay, that what he was feeling was real and valid, that he wasn't broken or wrong. But that also didn't change the fact that he'd hurt me, that he'd built a life with me under false pretenses, even if those pretenses were false to him too. After 2 months, we had to tell our children. That was its own nightmare. Our daughter cried. Our son got angry, said things to his father he later apologized for, but that still hung in the air. The grandchildren were too young to understand, thank God. But the family dynamics shifted. Holidays became awkward. Everyone was walking on eggshells. After 3 months, Richard moved out. Not in with Alex, just into his own apartment. We weren't divorced yet, hadn't even filed papers. But we both knew we needed space to figure out who we were as individuals, not just as a married couple. I stayed in our house, our home, surrounded by 32 years of memories that now felt tainted. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture we'd chosen together, every room where we'd lived our life, all of it felt like a lie now. Epilogue. The truth. It's been 8 months now since I found that napkin. 8 months since my world shattered. We're divorcing. It's amicable, as these things go. Richard is being fair about finances, about division of assets. He's still involved with Alex, though they're taking it slow. Our children are adjusting, though our daughter still struggles with it. And me? I'm learning to be alone, learning to be Margaret, not Margaret and Richard, learning that my identity isn't tied to being someone's wife. It's hard. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm sad. Some days I look at photos from our early years and wonder how we got here, how the young couple so in love became this. But some days, I'm okay. Some days, I even feel something like relief, because I'm not living a lie anymore. Neither is Richard. We're both facing the truth, however painful it is. People ask me if I hate Richard. I don't. I'm hurt. I'm betrayed. I'm grieving the loss of my marriage and the future I thought I had. But I don't hate him. Because I've come to understand something. Richard didn't do this to hurt me. He did this because he was finally being honest with himself. And as much as it destroys me, as much as I wish things were different, I can't hate someone for finally accepting who they really are. The insane secret my husband hid wasn't just that he was having an affair, it was that he was hiding from himself. And when he finally stopped hiding, when he finally found the courage to be authentic, it cost us both everything. Was it worth it? I don't know. Ask me again in a year. But I do know this. I'm 57 years old. I thought my life was over when I found out the truth. But maybe, just maybe, it's actually beginning. Maybe this is my chance to figure out who Margaret is when she's not defined by being someone's wife. Maybe losing everything is what I needed to find myself. Or maybe that's just what I tell myself to get through the day. Either way, I'm still here, still standing, still surviving, and some days, that's enough. The end.